Now we're going to go back in the past and revisit the discussions from the breakout groups that happened in the very end of the day. We'll have the discussion leads summarizing the key points that were discussed, and so that we can um, remember them and think of them throughout the day. Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Jai Ye from Rice University, and then Vinny over there, like we are the co-lead in the session and taking notes here. So I'm gonna go over a few points and then Vinny will take over. Starting in last day's discussion, we start with the possibility of producing this or having representative data sets. And especially we should have multiple data sets because we have diverse needs and different applications. There are different stance on this point, like people can see the potential of that, and then because having that data set would allow people to compare different results. But then there are also concerns on the other side saying, once we have that data set, how long are we going to use it? How long it's going to be before it gets outdated? And then there are also questions on how many people in proportion that would be needed to maintain this work. And then the discussion shift a bit to the kind of the status right now where people generate their own data set for their own project, and then those data sets are not reused. So there are reasons for that because people now that have their own specific problem, they created data set for themselves, like for specific application, and then don't have extra resource or like motivation to further enhance the data set or make it more become a more general data set for other people to use it. So hence, even if they share it, not many people can reuse that data set. And then there are points about how to motivate people to doing so. One of them is to gamify the process. Like if there's a data set out there and then people can kind of compete and then compare using that data set and can get recognition by that, that would be one way. And then there were also discussion on how we can also get the users involved and like willingly participating in the data set collection. And then there is also a point from the counterpart on, like people just generating their own data sets, saying it's a normal thing and then we should accept it. Because like for many of the problem, they are so unique that we should only have a data set, study it, and then that's it, and then wait until that problem become a community problem. Then we will have a generalized purpose data set for that. So the point is like when there is a need, then people would come out to do that. But then the discussion, so this discussion kind of lead to the chicken egg problem, whether you have the problem first or you have the data set first.
Good morning, everyone. So another aspect which was discussed was the practices or the approaches for dataset collection. So in this regard, it was highlighted that we should emphasize on use of RF applications that naturally collects data, or we should augment them with some hardware that the data could be collected sideways and it could be potentially used for some applications. For instance, we talked about reusability of CSI data measured by 802.11, but at the same time, we should encourage sharing of such data by providing license for sharing. Then another aspect in the reusability of data which came up was understanding of the working of spectrum sharing mechanisms, especially the coexistence and the interference problems, and then pursuing this as a community. The motive behind this is that this thing could be taken forward to other mid-bands which will come up and eventually be shared. Then in this regard, we also talked about the value of the data and how to preserve it. Then we got some interesting we got some idea that the sharing of this data preserves its value as it will be available to wider community of researchers. And one of the example which was highlighted was the Intel Wi-Fi cards that capture CSI information, and it has enabled academic research on Wi-Fi sensors. Then one of the points on need for some performance bounds that data actually achieve was also raised. And then the interesting question was whether we should go for data collection from a real deployment or we should go for SDR-based dataset collection. For the real deployment, one has to wait for the system deployments, but for the SDR, we have not to wait. But on the other hand, from my personal experience, which I got like most recently, I was trying to transmit data using SDRs, specifically the LTE frames in ISM band, and I saw leaky edges around the frame. And then when we discussed and like brainstormed with some of the people from NIS, then we got to realize that the base station has some spectrum mask compliance, which our SDRs cannot do if we don't emulate a base station. So here's the point that we can go for SDR-based dataset collection, but that will not really mimic the real deployment, the data collected from a real deployment. So on this note, I would like to summarize that what we discussed, that we should try removing or minimizing barriers in dataset collection as a collective effort by identifying potential research applications and then collecting data sets which can be shared and reused. This reusability thing is utmost important. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much to our discussion leads for summarizing the discussion. Thank you.